I want to talk about cheating, or I guess you could say cheat culture. I'm not even sure culture is the right word, but I'm talking about the current attitudes, conversations, and behaviors around infidelity, which are, in my unsolicited opinion, more bizarre and anti-progress than they've ever been, at least more bizarre and anti-progress than they've ever been as long as I've been walking the earth. What's the crack, fam? It's your girl T, aka nappy-headed jojoba, not nappy, not jojoba, nappy-headed jojoba. You have to say the whole thing. It's like don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. Remember 2-3 weeks ago when it seemed like cheating scandals were more plentiful than pumpkin spice? I know that feels like a long time ago, but try to think back to a time before Cunye and Clandis became the skid marks on your timeline that they are at the Mo. There was a cheating trifecta from Adam Levine to Ime Udoka to what's his nuts from the white guys. Try guys. What did I say? I was surprised 0.0% by the Adam Levine thing. That guy has always given me deuce chills, and anyone who believes for a second that his infidelity stopped at clumsy, deranged DM flirting, I have a beachfront property in Utah to sell you. As for Ned or whatever, it won't surprise some of y'all that I didn't and still don't really know who he is. I have never seen any video from the Try Guys because I can tell that it is not my thing. But I do find it surprising that the wife guy's cheating scandal was such big news that it became mainstream to the point of Saturday Night Live doing a bit on it. I don't know, from what I read and saw that dug into the details of this cheating scandal, it seemed rather unremarkable to me, very run-of-the-mill. This is neither the first nor the last time a male with power and influence will use said power and influence for sneaky links, as the kids say. Honestly, not sure if anyone still says that. That these sneaky links were with a workplace subordinate, which is an obvious manipulation and abuse of power, this bit is also not unique. David Letterman had an entire room at CBS for his tryst with late show interns and staff members. Oh yes, y'all ain't know? Well, TT ain't forget. To quote Chris Rock, who also infamously got busted for cheating on his now ex-wife, a man is as faithful as his options. It is not more shocking to me that the so-called wife guy, Ned, had one affair that we know of. For moi, it's actually more predictable. The lengths to which the three Try Guys left standing went to distance themselves and wag their fingers at their former partner, that was what was interesting to me. I don't really believe that they were all blindsided by this revelation with the wife guy, and for their sakes, I hope all of their own off-camera behavior is immaculate with their closets clear of nary a skeleton, because woo chile, if not, the Mapology Tour clips ain't gonna age well. While I don't find anything surprising or unique about the Try Guy situation, I do of course understand the urgency and desperation to protect their brand from the stink of a cheating scandal. They gotta maintain their family-friendly, fresh and clean image. Did someone say fresh and clean? It was me. I said it. Why, that segues perfectly to today's video sponsor, Scentbird, a monthly subscription box for fragrance. My real ones will know that I love me some fresh and clean scents, and during the Cove, I became a daily fragrance wearer, so I've put y'all onto Scentbird before. Real talk, I'm still using and loving the fragrances from our last go-round, IRL. Indeed, I am wearing one right now because your girl ain't no oversprayer and the vials are generous. Since they so graciously insisted I re-up to experience some new scents and their updated packaging, this time I chose Chloe Love Story. I've been dying to try other scents from this house. As well as Dime's I Love Your Smell Baby, because that is exactly what he is going to be saying when I wear this. Scentbird also surprised me with Collezione Privata's Just Bloom, which is serving luminous, eloquent bouquet teas. And lastly, Sugarful Sunshine by Michelle Germain, giving tropical dessert vibes. Click the link in the D-box and use my code for 55% off your first month at Scentbird, which works out to be about $8. And no, I do not earn a commish if you use my code FYI, but it does let them know that I sent you. And for the queens and kangs of the north, Scentbird is now available in Canada. The third cheating scandal of that trio a few weeks back was that of Ime Udoka, the now suspended coach of the Boston Celtics. This scandal made the splash that it did largely because of who he cheated on. Nia Long. Although Matt Barnes was being a messy queen who lives for the drama, saying there was way more on the Celtic side of things since the affair was apparently with a married colleague, if I recall correctly. I stopped following the whole thing almost immediately, but if Barnes ever did give the tea on how it all went way deeper than what we got to see in the headlines, I'd be surprised. Back on topic. I grew up in the 90s and the noughts, so Nia Long will forever be the epitome, to use Shia LaBeouf's pronunciation, of talent, grace, and beauty. Total package. But I also grew up, and indeed still live in, a world of profound misogyny. Here's a phrase that I heard many times in college, and I'm sure some of you have heard a version of this too.
For every hot chick you see, there's a dude out there who's tired of f***ing her.
As you can tell, I went to a PWI, but what's more important here is the casual misogyny. In so many cases of infidelity, namely in cases where the man is the one who is cheated, it doesn't take long for his stepping out to be used as a reflection of the woman. No matter how desirable, no matter how perfect a woman may be, if her man cheats on her, clearly she f***ed up somehow. We saw this in the discourse around Udoka's cheating. Nia Long was being critiqued for remaining engaged to him for so long without actually being married, for having a child with him without being married. The list goes on. As if being married would have stopped him from cheating? Similar thing happened with Beyonce Giselle Knowles-Carter, although the whys were different. For every person who was absolutely flummoxed at the idea that someone, anyone, could and would cheat on Beyonce, for every one of the flabbergasted, there were 5 to 10 more trying to tell you why. Let some tell it, she deserved to be cheated on. I say this not to get into the specifics of why any of these people or camels have had affairs. That is unknowable for us randos who aren't involved with any of these public figures. I say this to establish the more traditional dynamics of cheating, wherein even when it's the man who cheats, there's no shortage of people who want to make it the woman's fault. And when it's the woman who cheats, it's definitely her fault. Let's be real, there's also a long history of women cheating in relationships. I'd love to see a Venn diagram of guys who got cheated on and got their hearts broke, cross-referenced with red pills. Anyway, whether women cheating is more or less common than men cheating, I'm not sure that this sort of thing will ever be quantifiable, because cheating, by nature, requires concealment and secrecy, at least if you're going to be any good at it. However, the difference that I'm seeing now is the shift away from seeing concealment and secrecy as required. I do still think that these things have to be exercised to cheat, but there's no shortage of people who gallivant through these social media streets showing us that being a cheater is their primary personality trait. It is not a flex. I said at the top that I think cheat culture, meaning the attitudes and ideas around cheating on social media, are at an all-time peak of bizarre. To cheat, or to be known as a person who cheated, used to be scandalous in a way that I'm not certain that it still is. More specifically, I'm speaking of this conflation of female sexual empowerment through taking on characteristics that are typically considered masculine. I use quotation fingers because what we see as masculine is prescribed, and many of these traits and behaviors have little or nothing to do with nature. This is why toxic masculinity is the scourge that it is, and every mouth breather with an internet connection is calling himself an alpha. Masculinity as it exists in our society severely limits what men are allowed to be in order to be deemed masculine. Therefore, when I say things like masculine or acting like a man in this context, I'm not referring to how I think men should act, but rather the tropes of what masculinity is under the albatross of patriarchy. I think we more or less all have an idea of what this means without derailing the conversation into
what is masculinity really?
Type of existentialism on today. There's no need to be glib. We all know what it is in this world that we got, even if we explicitly uphold or challenge this prescription of masculine behavior as individuals. Anyway, I've mentioned this book before, but I'm gonna say it again, because if you are a man, or if you know a man, or if you've ever heard of men, you should read The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. It's not even long. I'll link it on Not Amazon, but it really explores how patriarchy is harmful not only to women, but to men as well. So notions of men naturally being incapable of being faithful, of just being cheaters by nature, all men cheat type of rhetoric, I think that's a byproduct of what people have decided certain traits of masculinity are, and because of this hyper-prescribed narrow view of masculinity, which, I repeat, harms everyone, including men, when you pair this with the hierarchical nature of our society, where women are outranked by men by design, that is how patriarchy is set up after all, when women are the cheaters, it's associated with masculinity. And in the city girls era, it has therefore become conflated with confidence and power. After all, men have power, or at least they're supposed to. So to behave like a man, or at least how a man is supposed to behave, is to be powerful, right? Right? This is how we wind up with the if he cheats on me, I'ma cheat back type of internet threads, which are deadass just hurt people threads. We're at a point where men and women on the internet, at least, are declaring proudly that not only are they partnered with people whom they don't even trust enough to be faithful to them, but if their partners aren't faithful, they're also just going to fuck outside for revenge. Does that sound empowered to you? I'm 98% sure that I said something along these lines in another video recently, but if our vision of women's liberation is informed entirely by being able to behave like men, we will never be free. Because I don't necessarily think that cheating is actually more common now than it used to be. But the advent of social media and people saying wild shit for likes and clout has brought us here. I was having a discussion with my Patreon fam last Friday. We had a little movie night and then we pretty much always kiki afterward for entirely too long. And I was telling them, and I don't say this to be like, oh, look at me and how moral I am, but it's just a fact. I don't cheat, I leave. And until I got a little older and had my bubble burst, I thought most people were this way. I really did think, rather naively, that cheating was uncommon. Cheating can mean many things, and you and your partner may not even see eye to eye on what does and does not count. Emotional affairs have the potential to be just as hurtful as actually doing the deed. And yes, I did just do this motion because I have the sense of humor of a junior high school stoner. But even with establishing whatever parameters, if you're on some if she cheats, I'ma cheat back BS, for the love of Ray J, just break up. Personally, I don't think women cheating or threatening to cheat loudly on social media advances us any more than the Adam Levines and Neds and Ime Udokas and Offsets and Futures of the world meaningfully advance men. I damn sure don't feel more free. If people are feeling constricted and unfulfilled by puritanical value systems and monogamy, and that's what's behind them seeking additional or outside relationships, that's definitely something worth talking about, which we actually did with my Patreon fam in that juicy kiki last Friday I was just telling y'all about. But the non-monogamy discussion, that's a different kettle of fish. And one I think best kept behind a paywall for now, because I know some folks ain't ready for that conversation. Thanks for hanging with me all the way to the end of this chat about cheaters and their cheatations. I love you. That body of yours is fucking absurd. Don't forget to stay safe, stay dangerous, and never trust the wife guy. Bye-bye.
That's some nappy-headed hose there, I'm gonna tell you that now.